So the previous decade brought us the revolution of the deck builder, although you can see videos I've already done about it for more, but in modern times, a genre that's growing in popularity is the dice builder. That being games where players have a set of dice rather than a deck and modify them as the game progresses. A great example you can try right now for free is Rolling for Royalty over on itch.io. It was created for a game jam and can be finished in about 30 minutes, using customizable dice to face down various challenges. Another one is Dice Forge, which is pretty much Dominion, but with dice. But today, we are looking at KAPOW by Wise Wizard, the folks who also made Starforge. KAPOW is a 1 vs 1 superhero-themed fighting game where players allocate dice into what actions their characters will take on their turn. And this one I actually got to play at PAX, so I can show you guys actual gameplay footage. Woohoo! KAPOW is actually only partially a dice builder, as players start the game with only 1 or 2 of these special action dice out of their collection of 5 or 6. You can either play as a basic character with a set of 1 of each die and 20 health, or play as one of the characters who start with a weaker dice spread in exchange for better health and a bonus card of more options to spend their dice on. These blank action die are the actual deck building elements onto which different faces can be attached, and it starts the game with a single lightning bolt side, representing a wild card. The other dice are trait dice, where each has a spread corresponding to one of the icons on the board. These dice tend to have 1 wild facing, 3 matching facings, which are the same color as the die itself, an off-color facing, and a blank facing represented by this hexagon. Although a blank side is technically not amiss, as there are slots that take any die for their requirement. Players each roll out their dice brochure, set the hero card they've chosen, if any, on the right side of it, set up their screens, and roll their dice all at once. They then allocate the appropriate die into their attack, defense, and power-up sections on the board. As you might have guessed, more powerful effects require more and more specific combinations of dice to pull off. Once the dice are set, both players reveal their dice allocations, and actions play off in order, starting with the player who has priority, which on the first turn is the player who started with the villain brochure. Players compare their total attack and defense, derived from the number of base, kicker, and multiplier dice they put down, and apply damage accordingly. Then comes the power-up phase. Some panels allow players to gain dice and faces. These dice and faces, acquired during each step, are set aside until the end of the turn, where they get added to your dice pool. You may freely shuffle the faces of your action dice using the removal tool before the next round begins. First one to send their opponent to 0 health wins. So it is an interesting idea, using dice to plan your actions while trying to guess how your opponent will act, as there are effects that can punish basically any choice. And I admit it, it intrigued me at first, but the more I mulled it over, the more I started to notice the flaws. The biggest one, like with Love Letter, is the reliance on the honor system. Your dice are rolled in secret, and it would be easy to silently flick them to a better side while you build your board. There are also immediate abilities that you must commit dice to before the screens get raised, and you can try to make players forget you spent dice that way too. Also, the dice are a bit finicky on letting go of their facings. Maybe they should consider cozying up to the folks who make Dice Forge. Their Lego brick inspired dice are just mwah. That first problem has an obvious fix too. Make the dice roll public. You roll your dice before you put up the screen. You can also make it so that these immediate effects, which get activated while the screen is still up, can have a separate card outside of the screen to show quite obviously that the dice have been committed to it. The reroll itself can be secret, sure, but the die spent to use it needs to be public. And while letting your opponent know what you rolled might seem like a bad idea, there are so many possible combinations of how you can use your die that even knowing your roll, what you do with it is pretty impossible to predict accurately. The game also features a solo mode using the backside of the hero cards, and a co-op mode is slated to come out with set number 2. But as it is, KAPOW is a bit rough around the edges, though I honestly think those can be easily worked out like I suggested before. So that's KAPOW by Wise Wizard Games, and we'll see you again for number 3. A big thanks to our patrons for making this all possible.